Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and today we are talking about Nintendo Switch 2 and a potential cover-up here. It may be the case that Switch 2 could be coming out this September, and Nintendo may be doing everything they can to keep things under wraps until it's the right time for them to reveal this console and their launch plans. So what's going on? Well, that's what we're talking about today. But before going forward, let me point out that we are still aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers, hopefully by the time Switch 2 comes out, maybe this September. So if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Leaving a like is also super helpful, and enjoy the ride as we talk about Nintendo every day. So as I suggested, there's a couple things that have come up over the last few days that seem to suggest that something like this may be happening, some sort of potential cover-up here. But the beginning of the story stems from this press release of Altic Lansing announcing their plans to be a licensee of AI Shark, formerly known as Game Shark, and their plans to launch coinciding with Nintendo Switch 2 in September of 2024. This was a part of their official press release. And so Digital Trends initially found this, popularized this press release, and then different venues followed reporting that Switch 2's release date of September 24 had been leaked. But later in the day, Jason Schreier posted this. FYI, an AI Shark spokesperson tells me they are just guessing about the next Nintendo console's release date. And so the general sentiment at the end of the day, when this all came out on January 11th, was that people were jumping the gun here, assuming that Switch 2 had leaked, and that this was more of a mistake on AI Shark's part, or perhaps some sort of plot to get people talking about their tech. And if that had been the end of the story, this video would not be happening today. But I noticed something this past Sunday on January 14th, 3 days after this story came out. IGN was still posting about this story of the Switch 2 release date leak. And what I found curious about this is that IGN, being a reputable news site, wouldn't continue talking about this if we had enough credible information out there suggesting that there wasn't too much to take away from this. Especially since we had someone like Jason Schreier, a reporter at Bloomberg, that had already spoken to a spokesperson from AI Shark that sort of suggested there's not too much to the story. And so I went ahead and I checked IGN's article on this, and they did update and acknowledge that Jason Schreier and Digital Trends followed up here. And so this is what the update on IGN's article says. Both Digital Trends and Bloomberg's Jason Schreier have now reported receiving statements from Altic Lansing that seem conflictingly to double down on the fall 2024 date and also claim the date is guesswork, in quotes. But what's likely happening here is that Altic Lansing was, in fact, making an educated guess on the date of Switch's release based on internal industry conversations as well as analyst models. Whatever the case, we'll have to wait for Nintendo's official word to find out the real date. So, there's some interesting takeaways I think I have here. I noticed a lot of people pointing out that there's no way Nintendo would tell AI Shark about the Switch 2 release date. AI Shark, Game Shark, a company with a history of supporting cheats in games and such, that's not something that Nintendo would be all happy-go-lucky with and be sharing really important information. And I agree with that point. But just because Nintendo wouldn't tell them doesn't mean someone else wouldn't. And here IGN does point out internal industry conversations. So it's not just Nintendo in the industry. There are a whole bunch of other companies. So it is definitely possible that someone at Altic Lansing could have been privy to this kind of information. If we can have random insiders that we don't know where they get the information from, a tech company that's heavily involved with the game industry could have internal conversations with other companies and be privy to this type of info. Tech companies do make educated guesses on when to put out their hardware and software based off what else is happening in the industry. This is the norm. So I think the overall implication from IGN's article here and their update is that While it's not official, and it's not necessarily a leak, it could be a really darn good prediction based off some strong informed speculation. On top of that, it's also within the realm of plausibility that IGN, another company in the industry, may have had internal industry conversations that are leading them to push this news more so than usual. And what I find extra interesting about this is that Altic Lansing changed their press release. Initially, the press release read as, "Formerly known as GameShark, AI Shark is set to redefine the gaming landscape with its revolutionary AI-enhanced technology. The innovative gaming software is set to mark a significant leap forward in the gaming experience, bringing enhanced gameplay for beginner-level users. The official launch is planned to coincide with the Nintendo Switch 2 in September 2024. But when you actually check the press release, the last sentence has been changed. That whole line about Switch 2 in 2024 of September, that's gone. Now it says, Altic Lansing plans on introducing its new offering in time for the holiday season 2024. They didn't even put a period. So it looks like they were in a rush to change what was put there. And so why did they do that? Because of the angry response by the public? Because of the potential controversy? Or perhaps because the Nintendo ninjas were like, hey, don't do that, please. I think it's possible. But we're not done with the potential cover-ups here. There's a little bit more to this. So yesterday, I put out a video talking about Metroid Prime 4 potentially being shown off soon. And this video was more so me looking at some new information that Super Metal Dave discovered in his own video the day prior that seemed to confirm some theories and even a rumor I reported on alongside with Nintendo Prime from early last year about Metroid Prime 4 being in the quality testing, quality assurance stage for seemingly almost a year at this point. But another part to this was that apparently Retro Studios is working with Next Gen Dreams on something, potentially them putting together a debut trailer for Prime 4. And after Dave put out his video on January 15th, they changed their site to no longer include Retro Studios as a client. Retro Studios being the developer behind Metroid Prime 4, one of Nintendo's development studios. So here we have two different cover-ups, and it's possible they're separate from each other. It may be the case that Nintendo doesn't want info coming out about Metroid Prime 4, and that's totally separate from the whole Switch 2 release date situation. But it's also possible that they are heavily related. Many people speculate, myself included, that the reason we haven't seen Metroid Prime 4 yet is because they are saving it for the Switch 2 marketing cycle. And we factor in this information we have now that confirms that they've been doing playtesting since March of 2023. They've been in a position to show off Prime 4 for a while, and they haven't. So what's going on? Well, as many reports suggest, it is likely the case Switch 2 is coming out in the second half of this year. And so with that, Nintendo likely has a lot of things that are positioned already behind the scenes that a lot of companies are already aware of, and so these things are starting to leak out. And Nintendo is trying to cover it up. That kind of seems to be the case here. So then, is Nintendo Switch 2 actually going to come out September of 2024? Well, I'll say that personally, ever since we got the initial reports from Eurogamer and Video Games Chronicle about Switch 2 coming out in the second half of 2024 last year, I've been entertaining the idea of September very strongly, and it seems that as more and more time progresses, more and more people are becoming more welcoming to the idea of a September launch. And in my predictions, I've been predicting that Switch 2 will be out by the end of this summer. But every time I bring up this prediction, as I'm doing now again, I've pointed out that technically summer starts June 20th of this year and ends September 22nd. So we have about 3 weeks of September that technically are still summer. So if Switch 2 comes out in September, odds are it'll be in those first 3 weeks, which would still fall in line with by the end of the summer. And I do think a September launch makes a lot of sense. We've seen various signs suggesting that maybe a summer release is in the cards for Switch 2. But more so when I think about the competitive advantage of Switch 2 coming out around this time, that's a little bit of a window before November and December, the big time of holiday sales. And so there will be more opportunity to put out more shipments of Switch 2, get more systems out there, have a few extra months of people playing the system, ironing out the kinks, more games coming out, building up that launch lineup, and also more time for both word of mouth and just heavy advertisements from Nintendo about the new console and its games. And so they can close out 2024 really strong. I think if Switch 2 comes out in November, you don't have a lot of time there. October, I mean, sure, they could definitely do October, but September, that's even more time, and that's 4 months in the year where they can be coming out with games. And so I think they can build up a really solid lineup that way. I've expressed optimism about the system coming out even sooner than that, but September has been the month that I've kind of gravitated around most of the time. And so going back to the story here of AI Shark and Alltech Lansing and them potentially actually having leaked September 24 as a launch date, and it's been covered up since, it's interesting, to say the least. But if September is truly the launch time, I think something else we should take into consideration here is that may mean that we don't get like a big blow up for Switch 2 for a few more months. Let's remind ourselves that Nintendo gave us the initial teaser for Switch 1 October 20th of 2016. The system came out March 3rd of 2017. That's literally 4.5 months, 134 days. So if they follow a similar pattern here, we might not see an announcement until sometime in April. But I have been arguing that we'll have some sort of official word from Nintendo that strongly supports the idea of Switch 2 coming out this year by the end of the fiscal year, which would just be adding in a few more weeks to a month to this potential window between reveal and release. But maybe it's the case we have more like a codename reveal or something like that, and then they put out a teaser, and then we get a big blowout, say, in June, where we usually get a big influx of Nintendo news, and then the launch is in September. That's possible. Regardless, though, we are seeing info that is being stricken from the record related to Nintendo things, like Metroid Prime 4 and Switch 2. And with all the talk of these different things likely happening this year, it's quite fascinating. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andre's Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.